What exactly was Israel supposed to do after being attacked on October 7th? Let's watch this clip with Douglas Murray talking to a group over here, and we'll talk about it afterwards. So check out this clip, what he has to say. But before we do that, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. Love to stay in touch. Check this out.
In Israel, when Israel is attacked, like it was on the 7th, who knows what to do about it? People disagree about tactics. Some people will say you shouldn't have gone in this far, or only win a bit, or do it from the air, where everyone becomes an expert in ground, house-to-house missions. But they know what to do. They've got an army, citizen army. They have significant experience in counterinsurgency and warfare, and they know what to do. What does Britain do when a suicide bomber goes into a concert hall in Manchester and blows himself up and kills 22 young people? The question, I heard it at the time, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it?
Well, certainly don't look back in anger.
Yes, I mean, the first thing is, of course, yes, is that a few local people sing an Oasis, a banal Oasis lyric, and then suddenly all the newspapers are pushing, don't look back in anger, and the politicians are saying, isn't this a wonderful sentiment? And I was one of the only people in the country say, no, if your daughter is blown up, be very angry.
Seems reasonable.
Be very, very angry, and ask what your government's going to do about it. Yeah. But the point is, as I say, I come back to this thing that in most Western societies, the answer is the one that comes back at me, has done all my life. Well, what are you going to do about it? When you see a councillor elected in the north of England the other day in the regional elections, and he's a member of the Green Party, I think he misunderstands what Green stands for in this particular.
It's a very broad church. Yeah, there are some of the other councillors.
I wouldn't use the word church. It's a broad something. But the Green Party moves from being sort of eco, let's all save the seals and the dolphins or whatever, and now it's Allahu Akbar. And the guy wins, and he's all Allahu Akbar this, and again, it's like, well, what are you going to do about it? This is where we are. This is where Britain is.
So we have been here before on the question of what are you going to do about it, depending on the scale. When
yes.
They go to the stadium in Manchester, or the MP, or the teacher who's beheaded, or with Charlie Hebdo. In fact, remember when we all marched? I don't know.
Je suis Charlie.
Yeah, Je suis Charlie,
and that Batley teacher's still in hiding.
Yes.
So, but there was one moment I remember quite recently when all the arguments that were used, that we were told over and over again, we can't do that. We will not prevent, we will not change the laws. It's all about the fact that we're an open society. They have habeas corpus. This isn't a war. We're going to try them in courts of law, not military courts. All of that changed with Bataclan. And it wasn't the event itself. I think it was a cascade of events.
Yes, that's right.
The French government was confronted with this is not something we can control. Suddenly, state of emergency was declared.
Yes.
Now, people can be picked up at any time for any kind of interrogation, and we don't know where they're going. Do you remember the height of ISIS? In fact, when the French government was caught saying, don't bring them back, let them get killed there.
Yes.
So all the principles that were used as an argument to do nothing were suddenly cast by the wayside. And now we're in a state of emergency. And I think there is a psyche among the ruling class where they think if things go from bad to worse, we can do that.
Yes, I think that is true. I mean, there have been a few occasions that have been very bad, but not quite bad enough to have the kind of change that's expected. People always ask me, as I'm sure they do with you, like, what's the tipping point on this? And I long ago gave up saying what it would be, because I'm just, every time I was wrong, I thought, this will change things. It turns out even Israel needed an awful lot of horror on the 7th to stop the country ripping itself apart on a question of judicial reforms that now looks pathetic.
But do you think that Israel is sort of primed in a way?
Yes.
Because you've made this case after every single sort of horrific thing that's happened in Europe, that there could be a moment where the country decides, actually, we don't want this anymore. And time again, we've almost acquiesced. It's become sort of, the level of violence is just normalized. And so I'm very skeptical about my sort of accelerationist friends who say, something big can happen and things will change. Are we just so demoralized as a society that we can no longer stick up for ourselves?
I think people don't know what they do about it.
Yeah.
And you have the added problem that the people in charge distrust the public, and maybe they're right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one that I'm very torn about always, which is, a few years ago, the BBC finally did a program about the rape gangs, the Muslim rape gangs in the north of England, and made a fictionalized version, dramatized version rather, of one called Three Girls. And it only took 20 years for the BBC to finally get around to addressing this question that you've written about in Prey and elsewhere. But they made this program, it was quite good. And a little while later, a guy from Wales hired a van and drove into a crowd outside Finsbury Park Mosque in London, wounding a number of people. And my view is that, by the way, the BBC, when they were looking for blame for how that happened, notably didn't point the finger at themselves. But the man who did it said in his interrogation by the police that he saw three girls on the BBC, and he was so angered he thought he'd get a van and drive it into a mosque.
Yeah.
And so, but I mention that because there's the complexity. Yeah. You've got to address this. You've got to address it. But they don't trust the public because they think my view is that most of the public can deal in the complexity of these people are criminal rapists, but that doesn't mean that you should go and attack the guy who runs the shop on the corner of your street. Yeah. But there's probably a certain number of people who don't have that ability to draw that distinction. And maybe society is currently running at the speed of, we can't trust those people not to do that. I think that's where it is.
This always has to be the focus, destroying the terrorist ideology. This is not a war between Jews and Arabs or Jews and Muslims. This is a war of civility versus barbarism, of Western civilization versus those that wish to destroy Western civilization. We need to eradicate simply the terrorist ideology that is found across the world. That's it. That's the end of story. If you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.